The sort of definition of remote viewing is the ability to perceive something that is distant or remote from you in distance, or it's blocked by a wall you can't see on the other side of the wall, or it's blocked by time. It's in the past or in the future. And these five physical senses don't work well on the past and the future. They only work in the thing we call now. So we're into a realm of semantics to begin with, because by definition, if it's too far to see, how can I know about it? If it's too far in time and space, how can you perceive it? Well, through the years, in the early experimentation of remote viewing at Stanford Research Institute, they found not only in trying to figure out how does this work, they looked into physics explanations. Maybe it's really ultra low frequency waves. Well, if that's the case, then the size of the object remote viewed and shielding could be put into effect. So they tried doing very small things inside thimble boxes, then microdots, and then atomic structures, and they found size didn't matter. They still got the same statistical hit rate regardless of size. Then they used submarines doing remote viewing experiments 2 miles down in the ocean. Didn't matter, did not block this low wave frequency. So they dismissed an electromagnetic explanation for this. Then they found, quite interestingly, in several experiments, that time didn't seem to matter. The normal way to run a remote viewing experiment back in the early days was like, as children, we would play hide and seek. One scientist would get a randomly generated target in a sealed envelope, go out and get in their car and go to this place that they didn't know when they left in their car where they were going. They would open the envelope and go to this place. The person doing the remote viewing, the perceiving, would be locked in a laboratory room and simply told to describe the location of this person at 10 o'clock. And the arrangements were you're supposed to be at this other place at 10 o'clock and interact with the target in some way. If the target happened to be a tower, climb to the top of the tower. If the target happened to be a restaurant, order something to eat. If the target was a marina, go walk among the boats at the marina. You know, do what is appropriate in the area that you're going to. And collecting over hundreds and hundreds of experiments, there was a statistical match between the descriptions and where they actually went that reinforced this. Well, along came an accident in science in which the person was on the way to the target. It wasn't 10 o'clock yet. And the person doing the perceiving said, I know where they're going. And he said, well, okay, describe where they're going. And he drew perfectly the location where they were. And so then they were saying, how could this be? We know that it doesn't depend on size and it's not electromagnetic, but if they haven't even got there yet, how is it that you could know that? There was a guy named Pat Price did that. And Pat Price made another time mistake that led to the understanding about time and distance not mattering. And that was, he described a location, the target location where the person went was a public swimming pool where kids were playing and there were 2 different sized pools and so forth. And yet, Pat Price described this as being an area of pools of water, 2 water towers, and it was a sewage processing plant. And so they said, well, look, you did have pools of water and you were probably confused, and that's why you called this a sewage treatment plant. And there was moving water, but the towers you drew weren't there. You probably just imagined them, which By the nature of many remote viewing transcripts, there's wrong information in there. There's enough in there that statistically validates, and then there's some things like, I don't know why you drew those towers in there. It wasn't until 25 years later, when the city published the historical records, that location used to be a water treatment plant. So there's this question of slippage in time then. And over the years now, this has been ongoing for more than 30 years now, it seems that once you say this is a remote viewing situation, this information was produced by a remote viewer, all of the concepts of time and space or distance just don't apply. It just doesn't apply. It's no more difficult to describe something with remote viewing across the street 10,000 miles away or on another planet. It just doesn't matter. It's in some other system. So there are a number of theories. There's 7 basic theories which Dean Radin outlines in his recent book very, very well. But one of the most popular theories is that of quantum mechanics. The idea of non-locality, of quantum entanglement. It seems as though using this as an explanatory tool, the mind of the remote viewer is able to entangle, quantum entangle with the information. So by definition, it's with an information, and its awareness and its whinness are not relevant. It's a quantum entanglement with an information, not with that place or that when, but with the information intersection of, at this time, in this place, what is the event that's happening? And that's a piece of information that is apparently detectable and decodable from the perspective of the remote viewer, from a quantum mechanical explanation. And the question here is, how can someone describe something that is distant from them? From the perspective of the remote viewer, it is not distant from them. It is information available in the quantum world, and all it is a piece of information. So the information isn't seen as being distant in time or distant in space. It's just a piece of information. There also comes up the question, well, is being out of body, the experience of a near-death situation, or having an out-of-body experience, is that the same as remote viewing? People who have experienced both say that there is a difference, not only in the conceptual notion of why you're having the experience, like, for example, in remote viewing, there's no prepositions or action verbs because it's all right there. And in an out-of-body state, if I want to go to the next floor, I float up through the ceiling. So there is action verb and prepositional orientation, not over here in remote viewing. And person in an out-of-body state perceives themselves to be at the place, whereas a person doing remote viewing perceives themselves to be here, talking about over there. So the nature of the two experiences are different.